Hey, folks. Let me kick this off with a bit of a brag. Yeah, I know, probably not the most humble way to start, but trust me, you'll understand soon enough. I'm 40 years old, and in just the past few months, I've been with not one, not two, but three absolutely stunning women. And this wasn't some wild fantasy or meaningless flings. This was real. Every single one of them, beautiful, sexy, and, most importantly, part of the plan. Now, before you go thinking I'm just blowing smoke, let me set the record straight. This wasn't about proving I'm some kind of ladies' man, and it sure as hell wasn't a desperate attempt to relive my youth. No, this was something much colder, much more deliberate. This was about revenge, carefully thought out, sweet as hell, and aimed right at the woman who had it coming. Yeah, you read that right. My wife. This isn't one of those feel-good stories where I walk away wiser, more enlightened, somehow above it all. Nope. This is raw, it's messy, and I'm not sugarcoating a damn thing. So if you're curious about how it all went down, buckle up, because I'm taking you right back to the start, and I'm not leaving anything out. I'm just a regular guy. Nothing flashy, nothing extravagant. No millionaire lifestyle, no luxury cars, just an ordinary life. I'd been married for 11 years, together with her for even longer. 2 kids, a mortgage, the usual. If you'd asked me before all this, I would have told you our marriage wasn't perfect, but it wasn't broken either. I thought we were solid, like an old, worn-in pair of boots. A little scuffed, sure, but still doing their job. Turns out, I couldn't have been more wrong. The night everything changed started out like any other. I came home from work, tired, just wanting to unwind. She'd made dinner that night, something nice, like she'd actually put effort into it, and she had this look on her face. The kind that said she wanted to talk. At the time, I figured it was just going to be one of those deep conversations about life or whatever. I had no clue what was coming. We sat down at the table. Kids were already in bed. I dug into my food, expecting the usual small talk about work, about the day, about nothing. But instead, she hit me with something else entirely. Out of nowhere, she starts talking about our marriage, how it felt stagnant, how the excitement had faded. Her words came at me like tiny daggers, each one a little deeper than the last. But I kept my cool. Look, I wasn't clueless. I knew things weren't as thrilling as they were in the beginning. After more than a decade, 2 kids, full-time jobs, of course things slowed down. That's just life. It didn't mean we were broken. It meant we needed to put in the work. Marriage takes effort. But apparently, I was the only one who still believed that. I listened as she went on about how predictable everything had become, how she felt like something was missing. And then, just as I was settling into my meal, fork still in hand, she dropped the bomb. She wanted to open our relationship. I froze. Whatever was in my mouth might as well have turned to dust because suddenly, I couldn't taste a damn thing. I kept my expression steady, but inside, I was screaming. Of all the things I thought she might say, this wasn't even in the realm of possibility. Counseling? Sure. Maybe a serious talk about how to bring back some excitement? That would have made sense. Even if she'd flat out said she wanted to separate, I would have seen that coming before this. But an open relationship? And the way she said it, so damn casual, like she was suggesting we try out a new restaurant. Just for a little while, she said, as if that made it better. We both need some space. Some freedom. Freedom. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. She sat there, trying to sell me on the idea that she could sleep with other men. No guilt, no consequences. And somehow, that was supposed to help our marriage? Like this was just a normal, reasonable solution to hitting a rough patch. She wanted to keep everything stable at home, keep the comfort, keep me, while also running off to have her fun. No strings attached. No fallout. I didn't react. I just kept eating, chewing slow, nodding like I was actually considering it. But inside, I was fighting the urge to flip the damn table. And then, in that moment, something shifted. I realized our marriage wasn't dying. It was already dead. See, when your wife asks for an open relationship, it's not a conversation. It's a confession. She's already gone. Emotionally, mentally, and let's be real, probably physically too. She wasn't asking for permission. She was just looking for validation. She'd already found someone. I could feel it in the way she spoke, and how damn eager she was to justify it. Some guy was already in her head. Or worse, her bed. And now, she was just trying to make it official. But instead of losing my temper, instead of calling her out right then and there, I did something she never saw coming. I agreed. Yeah, I told her I was on board. And why? Because I knew I could play the long game. She thought she'd won. Thought she had just locked in her little hall pass to go screw around while I sat at home, clueless and waiting. But what she didn't know, I had my own plans. If she wanted an open relationship, fine. I'd let her think she was in control. But I was about to get my revenge in ways she never could have imagined. So yeah, I agreed. I looked her right in the eye, smiled like I actually meant it, took another bite of my now tasteless dinner, and said, "You know what? Maybe you're right." And just like that, the wheels were in motion. That night, after our little open relationship dinner chat, sleep was out of the question. Meanwhile, she was knocked out cold next to me, earplugs in, wearing that ridiculous sleep mask she swore helped her sleep. I almost laughed. She really thought she was playing me, thought she had this all figured out, but she had no idea what was coming. We used to have a relationship built on trust. At least, that's what I thought. No secrets, no locked doors, no hidden messages. We shared everything, phones, passwords, the whole deal. So when I reached under her pillow and pulled out her phone, my heart was pounding, hoping, praying. She hadn't changed the passcode. I took a deep breath, tapped in the numbers. Boom. It unlocked. That rush, half adrenaline, half rage, hit me hard. I felt like I had just discovered fire. She really thought I wouldn't catch on. First thing I did was check her messages. My hands were shaking, my mind racing, already bracing for what I was about to find. And it didn't take long. There he was. Some pretty boy idiot sitting right there in her chat history, his smug profile picture practically staring me down like he'd already won. Some guy who probably thought he'd scored himself an easy side piece. A married woman, no strings attached. And the messages? Let's just say, if she hadn't physically cheated yet, it was only a matter of time. The way she talked to him, the way she laughed at his stupid jokes, the way she responded to his compliments, she was already gone. Checked out, fully invested in him. Honestly, does it even matter if she hadn't technically crossed the line yet? Betrayal is betrayal. And emotional cheating? That's just as bad as the physical kind, maybe even worse. Because once your partner gives someone else that part of themselves, the part that used to belong to you, it's over. And judging by the pictures and emojis they were sending back and forth, it wouldn't stay emotional for long. I took screenshots, saved everything. His Instagram, his number, every message. Sent it all to myself. If I was going to make a move, I needed proof. By the time I was done, I had enough ammunition to blow this entire thing to hell. But I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I had to play this smart. So, what did I do? I called in reinforcements. Yeah, it was late, probably around 1 or 2 in the morning, but I didn't care. I needed my guys, and I needed them now. One by one, I woke them up, told them to meet me at the park. No questions. Just get there. We all arrived around the same time. The place was deserted, just a few flickering streetlights casting long, eerie shadows over the grass. They looked groggy, confused, annoyed, until they saw my face. Something was wrong, and they knew it. One of them rubbed his eyes, still half asleep. Dude, what the hell is going on? I didn't waste time. I laid it all out, our dinner, her little open relationship proposal, the messages I found. At first, they just stood there, letting it sink in. Nobody spoke, but I saw it, the shift, the slow realization that this was real, that this wasn't just some dumb misunderstanding. Then, when I pulled up the screenshots and showed them, silence turned to rage. One of them clenched his fists. What are you gonna do? And that's when I told them. I had a plan. It wasn't perfect yet, but I had the basics. The way I saw it, I had to get ahead of this. Make sure that when everything blew up, I was the one holding the cards. Not her. At first, they thought I was out of my mind. I could see it in their faces. What I was suggesting. It was risky, maybe even over the top. But after we went back and forth, tweaked a few things, adjusted the plan, they were in. No hesitation. We all agreed. This had to be handled swiftly and smartly. No half measures. By the time we left that park, I felt something I hadn't in hours. Clarity. I had a plan. I had my guys backing me up, But I also knew something else. Once I put this in motion, there was no turning back. When I got home, I slipped back into bed, staring at the ceiling. That's when the fear kicked in. What if this backfires? What if she figures it out before I'm ready? But then, I thought about those messages. Thought about how carefree she sounded, how smug she was, acting like she had me wrapped around her damn finger. And just like that, the fear vanished. This had to be done. So when morning came and the first streaks of sunlight crept through the blinds, I was wide awake. My mind was on fire, racing with a single thought. I'm not waiting around to play the clueless husband. I grabbed my phone. No hesitation. Dialed a divorce lawyer. Didn't care that it was early. If this guy was as good as his reviews made him out to be, he'd understand why I was calling before the sun was even up. The moment he picked up, I skipped the small talk. I want to file for divorce, I said, my voice cold, steady. My wife's cheating on me, and I need the paperwork started ASAP. For a second, silence. Maybe I caught him off guard. Maybe I didn't. Either way, he recovered quick, started asking the standard questions, background, timeline, legal process. Then he brought up gathering evidence. I cut him off. Don't worry about that, I told him. I've already got more than enough. He scheduled me for an appointment that afternoon. As I hung up the phone, a new feeling took over. This wasn't just about finding out anymore. This was about taking control. I wasn't just some guy catching his wife in an emotional affair. I was the man about to end it, on my terms. She sat there, sipping her coffee like she hadn't just turned our marriage into a joke. Like this was normal. Like she wasn't about to walk out that door and cheat on me. I just smiled, playing the role of the clueless husband she thought I was. Oh, that's nice, I said, pretending not to choke on my own amusement. Tell them I said hi. She smiled back, smug as ever, convinced she had this all figured out. In her mind, she was free, able to do whatever the hell she wanted while I sat at home, none the wiser. But inside, I was already moving to the next phase of my plan. The second that door shut behind her, I sprang into action. This wasn't about reacting anymore. I was done playing defense. Now, I was taking control. My heart pounded, not out of fear, but from pure anticipation. I wasn't some pathetic victim, sitting around, waiting to be betrayed. No, I was about to flip the script in a way she never saw coming. I grabbed my phone and fired off a quick text. It's time. 30 minutes later, they pulled up outside. My boys, the party, and 3 younger women, all of them buzzing with energy, ready to liven things up. The second they walked in, the entire atmosphere shifted. It was like the air in the house changed. This was the turning point, and in a way, I knew it was. There was no hesitation. The drink started flowing, laughter filled the space, and within minutes, it felt like a whole different world. We were throwing back shots, toasting to the most ridiculous things, losing ourselves in the moment. And these girls? Young, carefree, and completely unbothered by life's complications. They were flirty, fun, reckless in the best way possible. For the first time in a long time, I felt something lift, like a weight I hadn't even realized was pressing down on me had finally disappeared. And the best part? While I was there, enjoying myself, my wife was sitting in a parking lot somewhere, waiting for a man who would never show up. Because I had made sure of that, too. That little boyfriend of hers? The one she thought she was about to have a steamy, secret weekend with? He had ghosted her, blocked her, because I made sure he was too afraid to let things get messy. I had orchestrated it. She thought she was off to some fantasy-filled escape, and instead, she'd be turning around, humiliated, pissed off, and with nowhere else to go. But me? I was going to enjoy myself in the meantime. The girls, now tipsy, laughing hysterically, suggested we move the party upstairs. The energy had shifted, playful but charged, and with every shot I took, I could feel my own hesitation slipping away. Why not? This was the revenge she never saw coming. One of them grabbed my arm, tugging me toward the bedroom like this was all some kind of game. And maybe it was. Maybe this was the game she started, but I was the one finishing it. Upstairs, things escalated fast. Giggling, clothes hitting the floor, lips against skin. And me? I let it happen. For years, I had been the good husband, the reliable one, the man who worked hard, provided, stayed faithful no matter what. But this was different. This was freedom. A kind of reckless, unhinged freedom I hadn't felt in years. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. Not about the past. Not about the future. Only about the moment. And then, a sound. A voice, slicing through the haze. What the hell is going on here? I didn't even hear the front door open. Didn't hear the footsteps on the stairs. But there she was, standing in the doorway, eyes wide, face twisted in pure, unfiltered rage. She scanned the room, taking in the sight of me half-naked, tangled up with 3 women in our bed. The stench of booze and bad decisions thick in the air. For a second, I paused, just long enough to turn my head toward her, flashing the biggest, most sarcastic smile I could muster. "Oh, this?" I said, my voice dripping with mockery. "It's just a free relationship, dear. You know, like you wanted." And then, just to twist the knife, I added, "By the way, how are your parents?" Her face went from red to pale in an instant, and that's when I saw it. The exact moment she realized what had happened. She knew. She knew that I knew. That this wasn't some random night of mistakes, that I had planned every single second of this. And it destroyed her. The realization hit her like a truck. And then, she snapped. In a blind, furious frenzy, she lunged at the bed, ripping the girls off me one by one. She grabbed whatever clothes she could find, throwing them at them, screaming at them to get out. The girls? Still tipsy, still giggling. They didn't put up much of a fight. They scooped up their things as quickly as they could, stumbling half-dressed down the stairs and out the door, their laughter trailing behind them. To them, it was just some wild night gone sideways. To her, it was the moment she lost everything. As soon as they were gone, she collapsed onto the edge of the bed, hands covering her face. And then came the sobs. Not soft, not quiet, but ugly, body-shaking, soul-crushing sobs. She couldn't stop. She couldn't breathe. She had no idea what to do. And honestly, I didn't care. I took my time getting dressed, buttoning my shirt, adjusting my belt, not rushing a single damn thing. And when I was done, I sat down next to her, calm, collected, not feeling the slightest bit of guilt. This was her doing, her choice. She was the one who pushed us here. And now, she was paying the price. "How was your date?" I asked, my tone casual, almost amused. She looked up at me, eyes red, puffy, tears streaking down her cheeks. That's when it fully hit her. She knew. She knew I had done this. She knew I had planned every detail, every step, every moment. She opened her mouth, probably to try and say something, but I cut her off before she even had the chance. "Don't bother." My voice was steady, cold, final. "A lawyer's going to call you tomorrow. We're done." And just like that, game over. The final move. I'm filing for divorce. I said it simply. No shouting. No dramatic last words. Just the cold, hard truth. Then, I stood up, looking down at her one last time. There's no point in fighting. No yelling. It won't change anything. What's done is done. And just like that, I walked out of the room, leaving her there to cry. No more arguments. No more drama. I was done. She made her bed. Now, she had to lie in it. The next morning, with everything that had happened still fresh in my mind, I knew I needed to clear my head. And I knew exactly who I needed to see. My friends. We'd been through a lot together over the years. But this was a new level of insanity. I shot them a quick text in the morning. "Meet me at the bar." Usual spot. They didn't even hesitate. By the time I walked in, they were already there, beers in hand, grinning like they knew something wild was coming. One of them leaned forward as soon as I sat down. "All right, man. We've been dying to hear how this all played out. Don't leave out a single detail." I didn't need much encouragement. I started from the beginning, breaking it all down. How my wife walked out of the house, convinced she was about to have her little affair. How her so-called lover had blocked her, leaving her stranded, and of course, the main event, her walking in on me in the middle of my fun. They were glued to every word, shaking their heads, laughing, completely in disbelief. One of them nearly choked on his drink. Wait. So she walks in, catches you, and you just hit her with, "Oh hey, free relationship, babe?" I smirked, taking a sip of my beer. Pretty much. That set them off. Laughter exploded around the table. She lost it, didn't she? Another guy asked, still wiping tears from his eyes. Oh, completely. I nodded, grinning. 1 second she's frozen, like she can't process what's happening. Next thing I know, she's in full meltdown mode, screaming, throwing the girls out like she hadn't just suggested an open relationship days earlier. Another one of my buddies shook his head in pure admiration. Damn, dude. You executed that perfectly. I would have paid good money to see that. The laughter grew louder as I kept going, telling them about how she broke down after the girls left, how she sat on the bed, completely shattered, and how I had stayed perfectly calm, delivering the final blow. A lawyer's gonna call you tomorrow. We're done. The quieter one in the group, the guy who usually just sat back and listened, leaned back in his chair, smirking. I gotta be honest, man. I envy you a little. 3 girls at once, and she had to walk in and see it? That's the ultimate revenge. I shook my head, still grinning. Yeah, it was definitely something. But honestly, I exhaled, leaning back. It wasn't just about that. They all went quiet, listening. It wasn't just about screwing around. It wasn't even really about revenge. I looked around the table. It was about taking back control. She thought she was pulling the strings, that I'd sit around and let her do whatever the hell she wanted. I just had to show her that she wasn't in charge anymore. For a second, they didn't say anything. They just nodded, letting it sink in. Yeah, revenge played a part in it. But at the core of it all, this was about self-respect. She tore it apart, so I had to take it back. I lifted my glass. I gotta thank you guys. Seriously, you had my back through all of this. Without you, I don't know how I'd have handled it. They clinked their bottles against mine, and for a moment, there was silence. The kind that comes when you know you've been through some real shit together. These guys? They had been with me through everything. I wouldn't have made it through this mess without them. We finished our beers, and the conversation shifted to the divorce process. The craziest part? It wasn't even that dramatic. After everything that had gone down, I think my ex just knew she had lost. She didn't fight it, didn't drag it out, didn't throw a last-minute tantrum. One of my friends raised an eyebrow. No screaming matches? No begging for another chance? Nothing? I shook my head. Nope. She just accepted it. We split everything fairly. I wasn't out to ruin her financially. What would be the point? I just wanted out. The house, the cars. We divided it all up without much of an argument. I think she was just too tired to fight, I admitted. And honestly, so was I. They all nodded. They understood. We'd all seen divorces turn into wars, dragged out, nasty battles where both sides tried to destroy each other. But in my case, it was over before it even started. She signed the papers. And just like that, we were done. So, what now? One of my friends asked, leaning forward. You got your freedom back. What are you gonna do with it? I paused, smiled, but this time, there was a different weight behind it. I don't know, man, I admitted. For the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back. I spent too much time wondering where things went wrong. I think it's time to just let it go. Start fresh. They nodded. We spent the rest of the night drinking, laughing, sharing stories. The kind of normal night I hadn't had in years. But even through the jokes, the beers, the easy conversation, something was different. For the first time in a long time, I felt lighter. Like I had finally closed the chapter on a part of my life that had been dragging on for way too long. And now, to anyone reading this, thanks for sticking around and hearing my story. I won't lie, this wasn't easy. But if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, pay attention. Don't get so comfortable in your marriage that you stop seeing the signs. Look at your spouse. Really look. Don't let things fall apart without noticing. And if they do, don't be afraid to take control of the situation. Because if you don't, someone else will. The hard truth, take it from me, you don't want to learn this lesson the way I did. Finding out the hard way? That's something I wouldn't wish on anyone. But if you do, if you ever find yourself standing in the ruins of something you thought was solid, wondering how the hell it all went wrong, just know this, it gets better. Much better. 1 year later. It's been just over a year since everything fell apart. And now? Now it feels like it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Looking back, it's almost hard to believe how much has changed. When you're in the thick of it, when the betrayal is fresh and the pain is real, it feels like the world is caving in. like nothing will ever be the same again. But now, it finally feels like everything is coming together in ways I never expected. First things first, the divorce. It's over, done, signed, sealed, and in the past. No regrets. Not a single one. Honestly, it went smoother than I ever could have imagined. After that final confrontation, my ex barely put up a fight. Maybe she realized there was no point. Maybe she just wanted out as badly as I did. Either way, we split the house, the cars, the money, clean break. I got what I needed, and she got exactly what she deserved. Life after the storm. I made a promise to myself after the divorce. For the first time in years, I was going to focus on me. And I don't mean just the cliché, hit the gym, get in shape kind of thing, though yeah, I did that too. It's amazing what a little freedom and motivation can do. I lost weight, built muscle, got into the best shape I've been in since my 20s. But the biggest transformation? That happened on the inside. Because once I had the time and space to actually think, to breathe, I had to ask myself, what do I want out of life? For so long, I had been caught up in someone else's world, always adjusting, always compromising, always shrinking myself to fit into a relationship that wasn't even real. But now, for the first time in a long time, I had options. So I sat with that question. I forced myself to answer it. And that's when I realized I had been holding myself back for years. A new beginning. The biggest surprise? My career. After the divorce, I threw myself into work, not just to keep busy, but to build something for myself. And the moment I stopped hesitating and started taking risks, things started to happen. I had this idea, something I had been thinking about for years, but never had the guts to pursue. A side business, something tech-related, something I was passionate about, but always put on the back burner because, well, life. But after the divorce, I took the leap. At first, it was brutal. Late nights, self-doubt, questioning whether I was wasting my time. But slowly, things started coming together. I built a small team, got investors on board, and before I knew it, the business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. A year later, we've made headlines in local business news. Nothing massive, but enough to feel like all the work, the blood, sweat, and sleepless nights actually meant something. And the best part? I did it on my own terms. No one holding me back. No one making me feel small. After spending so long in a marriage that made me feel trapped, that's a freedom I never thought I'd feel again. Rebuilding the right way. On the personal side, life has been good, better than good. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and, most importantly, I learned how to enjoy my own company again. For a while, I stayed single on purpose, not because I couldn't move on, but because I didn't want to. I needed to heal, to get my head straight, to figure out who I was outside of being someone's husband. But then, someone came along. We met through mutual friends. Nothing planned, nothing forced. Just one of those unexpected things that just clicked. She's amazing, smart, funny, independent, and the best part? She doesn't want anything from me except honesty and a good time. No drama, no baggage. It's the kind of relationship I never thought I'd have. Something simple, something real. I'm taking things slow this time. No rush, no pressure. But for the first time in a long time, I feel excited about where things could go. And my ex? From what I've heard, things haven't exactly gone well for her. She's been through a few relationships since the divorce. None of them stuck. Do I wish her ill? No, not anymore. I've moved past that. I've moved past her. If anything, I just hope she figures out what she's looking for, though I have a feeling she never will. People like her rarely do. Final thoughts. Looking back, it's crazy how much can change in a year. If you had told me 12 months ago that I'd be where I am now, running a successful business, in great shape, dating someone new, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. To anyone reading this, especially if you're going through something similar, just know, it gets better. It won't seem like it at first. It'll feel like you're drowning, like the pain will never stop. But trust me, it does. You just have to hold on. Take control of your life. And don't be afraid to make the hard decisions when the time comes. Because once you do, once you finally cut off the dead weight, That's when life actually begins. And for the first time in years, mine finally has. And I don't plan on looking back.